Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me here today on our Total Wellness Tuesday, where we are going to be going through how to detox heavy metals naturally. This goes for children. This goes for adults. And what I want to share with you is that heavy metals have to be one of those hidden, I wouldn't say stealth pathogens because they're not necessarily alive. I did a whole show on stealth pathogens that have to do with bacteria and yeast and molds and Lyme. Check out that show if you haven't already. I'll link that up today at stephencabral.com/2202. But today I want to talk about heavy metals because heavy metals are introduced to our bodies, believe it or not, before we're even born. I went through in my book, The Rain Barrel Effect, this study, which is now famous, of the 10 Americans. The 10 American study showed that only 400 toxins were tested, right? Only 400. And we know for sure that they were tested on the umbilical cord, the blood feeding the baby before the baby was even born. And they found an average of over 200 of those toxic chemicals. So again, anybody that tries to tell you that your body removes all the chemicals and all the toxins and all the heavy metals that come into it is wrong. Now, your body's detoxing every single second of every single day. That part's correct. The part that isn't correct is that your body, your liver, your kidneys, your skin, your lungs get everything because they don't. And you can test for heavy metals very simply. It could be a urine test at home. It could be a blood-based test right at home, just a couple finger drops of blood. It could be a simple hair tissue mineral analysis where you take a couple snips of hair. Any one of those shows what your body has for heavy metals. This has been known for decades now. This is something that's done in hospitals, doctors' offices. Now, again, are most medical doctors doing this? No, they're just not aware of it unless you come in with lead poisoning-based signs. They don't even think to check for aluminum, right? Or cadmium, or mercury, or arsenic, or any of these other metals that are actually harming our body. And you might say, well, what are they really doing? How do you know if you have them? The issue is this, is that they're inflammatory. They cause oxidative stress. They lead to inflammation, which then leads to what? Disease, right? So you end up with an autoimmune issue. You end up with a skin issue. You end up with headaches. You end up with migraine. You end up with low thyroid. You end up with adrenal issues. You end up with like literally poor eyesight, and you're saying, wow, I had no idea how this happened. It must just be genetics. Well, sure, there's a genetic component to it, but why were your genetics set off for this thing to happen? Well, it's because there was massive amounts of inflammation. Okay, yeah, that's true too. So what do? Do we just use 50 grams of turmeric a day? Or do we look at what are the underlying root causes? And again, I'm not against palliating symptoms. I'm okay with that once we're working on the underlying root causes. I don't want anybody to suffer either. So then we start to look deeper. We do a minerals and metals test analysis on the hair, or we do a toxic heavy metals test for the blood in the urine. And we're like, oh, look, there's mercury, there's aluminum, because it's so pervasive in our environment. Why is it pervasive in the environment? Well, what do we have? We got silver amalgams in our mouth that we like to call silver. Well, they're not made of silver, right? What do they have in them? Nickel, they have mercury, they have aluminum, they have all sorts of different metals, mercury being the most toxic out of all of them. Well, then we have all the metals in fish, right? So I've done a podcast on the fish highest in mercury. I'll link that up today as well. Episode 2202 will have those links. stephencabral.com/2202. We'll have all of those. So we have to understand we've got fish that are high in mercury. We've got, we're not even talking about all the aluminum in our tap water, right? We're not even talking about the cadmium that's in a lot of our processed foods, or bromines, or what about arsenic in a lot of rice-based products, especially, the kids growing up, 1 year old, 2 years old. Oh, give them rice cereal, give them rice crackers. Well, here's the problem. Unless it's coming from a clean company, guess what? That's most likely loaded with arsenic. And I'm not saying this to scare you, but it is a fundamental truth that you're not going to be told from, big food or conventional medicine. They have never been, well, certainly big food knows about it, but conventional medicine, they've just never been talked about this, right? Or taught about it. This is just not within their wheelhouse. And that's okay, right? Your medical doctor is not an omniscient power that knows everything. And we have to stop treating medical doctors like that, or any doctor or any practitioner. They don't know everything. There's too much to know. So what do they know? They know disease, and they know how to medicate it to mask symptoms. And that could save your life. So there's nothing wrong with that. You should have a medical doctor, but you should also have a natural health practitioner. The natural health practitioner will make sure, hopefully, that you don't end up in your medical doctor's office except for once a year for your annual checkup, right? That's the goal. They work together, but they're very different, two different paths. So anyway, in our environment, we're breathing in smog and pollution and all these things, and we get heavy metals in our body. And unfortunately, it's not going to get any better. It's really not. And that's because government has given big corporations and big food and big pharma way too much power. I mean, they really have. And it's not hard to see how it happened. It's that they pay for them to get into office, right? And this goes for both Republican and Democrat. I'm not saying that like one is better than the other. So, I don't want to get into that argument today because I'm not a political person. I'm a people person. And I just think that when you start to mix a lot of politics in there, and I know people love politics. I'm just sorry. I'm not your person for that. But what I care about is what happens to people in the end. And when, billions of dollars are exchanged and trillions are at stake for the GDP, and a lot of that comes from big tech, big pharma, big food, and I'm leaving out another big somewhere in there. It's a problem. It really is. It is. So what do we have to do? Well, we look out for ourselves. That's the truth, right? We start to understand that. Excuse me. We start to understand that a water filter, buying organic food as much as we can, using non-antiperspirant deodorants that contain aluminum, not using aluminum foil, as few plastics as we can. When we start to do things like that, we start to take better care of ourselves. We don't have to rely as much then on necessarily government or corporations or whatever it might be. And that's just something I think we can all teach each other, right? We try to do that inside of the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute, IHP. We try to put what's called a health coach in every home. You don't need to work with 1,000 people a year. You can simply learn more about your own health, right? And then you teach your kids or your parents or your siblings or your community or your church or your whoever it might be, whoever will listen, right? And that's really what it's all about. It's grassroots-based efforts. So we have to look at this, I think, a little bit more holistically, is that we can't bury our head in the sand as the ostrich would do, right? What we have to do is we have to realize, okay, the world is a little bit of a dirty place, right? I love the world. I love being in this world. I really do. I'm a happy person. I really am. But at the same time, I'm not going to deny the fact that when I walk outside, the air is pretty polluted. I don't live in the mountains. It'd be great if I did, but even still, there's some pollution, right? I know that we probably shouldn't drink from a lot of the water sources now because of all the metals and different pharmaceutical drugs that are in there. I talked about that and the rain barrel effect as well. So again, I just understand, and I'm an optimist with a heavy dose of realism. I really am. I always believe things can get better. I always believe that we can help each other out, but I'm realistic about what's going on around us. So there's a couple things you can do. First, you could test, right? You can always test. There's two ways to do it. You can do it for your kids. You can do it for yourself with a minerals and metals test. It's super easy to do. I'll link it up at episode 2202. You can always just go to stephencabral.com/labs and you can check it out. You can also run this. If you're working with a naturopathic doctor, you can certainly run it with them. Or you can run it with an integrative health practitioner level 2. You can run it with them. Or you can see what we do at, again, stephencabral.com/labs. And it's simple, right? So people overlook the value of hair tissue testing. And the reason is they're like, I don't understand it. I get it. Like, I understand that statement as well. But you just have to understand that your skin excretes a lot of what should be in your body. It excretes heavy metals, it excretes molds, etc. It's why one of the reasons why sauna is so great, right? Sweating is so great. Well, your hair, your follicles are attached to your bloodstream, basically your blood capillaries. And it pushes out through your skin just like it does through your hair. It's one of the reasons why they've used hair tissue testing for drug testing for many decades, right? You can find out what was in someone's hair. Anyway, it's very simple. It's very straightforward. If you don't want to do that, that part is okay. You can do a drop of blood along with a simple urine test in the morning. And that does heavy metals as well. That's called the toxic heavy metals test. So either one works. Both are great. It just depends on what you're looking for and what you're looking to get out of it. So that's that. You're welcome to test. But I also wanted to give you today natural ways, like every day, that we can be detoxing heavy metals, okay? So regardless of whether you're test or not, let's get into what you can do to remove them naturally. So here's what we want to do. I always tell people, so I do a lot of interviews on other podcasts, and people say, this is crazy. There's over 100,000 man-made chemicals in the environment. We're all going to die, all this stuff. And I say, let's slow down just a bit. Let's slow down a minute. We're all going to be fine. Everybody take a deep breath. I get it. It is overwhelming. I can get overwhelmed as well. What we want to understand is that you want to take care of the things that you are exposed to the most. That is your water and your food. Okay? So let's go through those, then we'll go through the others. So water, food first. Okay? Honestly, if you don't have a water filter and you believe your tap water is clean, I think that is a very scary proposition. And I think that you're making a guess as to it will always be clean, it's clean every day, and that you have to trust your city. Now, your city can say the water is clean. Guess what? They test for maybe a couple dozen to a couple hundred metabolites that might be in there. That's it, right? They're not testing for all the pharmaceutical drugs, et cetera, that people flush down their toilets that can be in your drinking water. And then you might say, well, how is people's toilet water getting to my drinking water? Again, I talk about this in the rain barrel effect. Many municipalities use recycled sewage water as actually drinking water. I know how gross that sounds. It is kind of gross. But not everybody uses a reservoir. That's just the way that it is. Regardless, we use tap water, but we filter it, okay? A Berkey water filter, you can go to stephencabral.com/resources. There's a lot I give on there. I think I have RO on there. I've got Berkey. I've got a pitcher type, not a what's the popular one? Begins with a B as well. Brita, not a Brita. You don't want that. That's not going to do you justice. And I've got shower filters and bath filters. Again, the Berkey, you replace the filters once every 6 months. The fluoride filter on it once a year. It's not... There's an upfront cost, and then that's it. And it's super cheap after that. Okay, so that's that. We've got water. What about our food? Try to purchase as much as you can organic. If not, follow the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. I will link that up at stephencabral.com/2202. All right. So we've got our food, we've got our water. But another thing we want to think about is this. The other place that metals can come from is our kitchen. I have a whole podcast on what to eliminate for kitchen items to be careful on aluminum. I'm going to link that up as well because I don't have time to go through all of those, like aluminum foil and antiperspirants. Well, that's the bathroom, I guess, but you get what I'm saying. So I want to go on other things that we can remove, detox quickly, okay? Hydration. So now we talked about filtering the water. You really need to be getting, for most people, about 8 to 10 glasses of water a day. Water counts. Herbal tea counts. Smoothies count. All of that counts. But about half your body weight in ounces of water per day. Okay, it's an estimate, but about half your body weight in ounces of water per day. 160 pounds, 80 ounces of water, that's 10 glasses of water per day. Okay, so hydrate your body. Flush it out. Flush it. Okay, the next is fiber. For some reason, people are now being led to believe they're only meant to eat red meat. It's probably one of the most insane things that any nutritionists who study nutritional biochemistry could possibly imagine, but all of a sudden we've removed everything and people are just now told to eat red meat or organs. It's unbelievable. But anyway, on the internet, you can say anything you want. And so that's where we're left to. Well, let me tell you something. If you are not getting any fiber and you're not eating any vegetables or fruit or any starches, whatever you want, you're dramatically shrinking your microbiome, which, by the way, temporarily, you can actually feel better because you might have bacterial overgrowth, right? I've talked about that before as well. And again, it's not a laughing matter. It's scary that this advice is being disseminated through the world. But anyway, we have to do our best, right? We have to do our best to put a health coach in every home and teach the truth. But you also want fiber. Fiber also helps to bind up toxins naturally so that you don't always need to be using all sorts of supplement-based binders. You can use good quality fiber. 35 to 40 grams a day is going to be great for most people. And if you can't handle that because it gives you bloating, gas, joint pain, headaches, skin issues, etc., please run a bacteria and parasite stool test or run a Candida metabolic and vitamins test. Find out why it's not working for you. Find out what your yeast imbalance, bacterial imbalance, parasitic, or H. pylori imbalance is. All right? Number 4 is increase your cruciferous vegetables to detox naturally. Why? Well, I talked about it last Friday, but sulforaphane is a great one, okay? Broccoli contains a lot of sulforaphane, but cruciferous vegetables in general, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, bok choy, broccoli, etc., the cruciferous ones, they help a lot with phase 2 detoxification because they contain more sulfur-based compounds. Those sulfur-based compounds enable you to break down those intermediary metabolites, turn them into a harmless water-soluble vitamin and, water-soluble toxin, and get it out through the stool, excuse me, the urine, or maybe even the sweat. Super, super important. All right. Number 5 is this: increase your omega-3s. Increase your omega-3s and even some omega-9s, which you will get with monounsaturated fats like olive oil or even avocados. So omega-3s can come from wild-caught fish, nutritional supplements that are triglyceride-bound and cold processed, non-oxidized. But all this helps with the inflammatory compounds that are created not only when you detox, but also just from the heavy metals floating around and in your tissues every single day. Really, really important. All right. Number 6 is this: add daily herbs to your diet. Cilantro, parsley are a couple that come to mind. And if you're using a good rainbow greens mix, highly recommend it because those typically contain some cracked cell chlorella, maybe some spirulina, not huge amounts, but enough just to help on a daily basis. I use the daily fruit and vegetable blend. Crisp apple is delicious. You can also get the unflavored if you'd like. But daily cilantro, daily parsley, just add, a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons with your dinner at night. Easy to do. All right, the last 2 are nutritional supplement based, but they are extracts of all essentially natural products. So I spoke about this, and I'll link this episode up as well. Go to stephencabral.com/2202 for the previous podcast that I'm linking to. So there's a great study. I believe it was 93%, but it was between 90 and 93% of all heavy metals, dangerous heavy metals, can be removed from the body naturally in about 6 weeks' time, 42 days, using cracked cell chlorella, using cilantro, using vitamin C. And we add a biofilm disruptor as well because a lot of those heavy metals are trapped inside of the biofilms in your intestines. They make great binders. They really do. So what do? Well, we look at the research and we say, oh, you need this much cracked cell chlorella. That's what we do. Oh, you need this much cilantro. That's what we do. And then we say, oh, you need this much vitamin C. That's what we do. And then we add in the biofilm disruptor. So a heavy metal detox, super easy to do. Honestly, you won't even really know that you're doing it. A couple times a day, you simply take the nutritional supplements and you bind up those heavy metals and remove them from your body. So it's that easy. I can't link up that protocol. I don't know the exact link, but if you go to stephencabral.com/shop and then search heavy metal, you'll be able to find that protocol. All right. And the last one is this. Some people, they want to use a binder while they're getting rid of heavy metals. I don't recommend an ongoing binder. I've talked about this many times. It's a little counterintuitive to what a lot of people are talking about in the health industry, but I'm telling you right now, most binders are for short-term use only. They really are. They often contain compounds like charcoal. Charcoal is a natural carcinogen. Sure, every once in a while, do I mind you taking charcoal? No. A few days at a time, no problem with it. Okay. But I don't want you taking charcoal for a long period of time. It's criminalized. It's literally burnt food. I don't want you to do that. Now, the other is this, is that I don't want you to bind up everything that you're eating in your diet, and that includes good minerals as well. Now, is it going to bind up everything? No, of course it's not. But I just don't want you doing that on a daily basis. You think using a binder is a great idea on a daily basis. I think you can pulse it. I think you can use it for like 3 to 5 days at a time, and I have no problem with that. Even if you wanted to use it once a week for a very specific purpose, I wouldn't have a problem with that either. But again, I just don't think that we need to go overboard all the time with these things. Again, the heavy metal detox protocol is 42 days because that's what the science says. And the intestinal cleanse, the one that I recommend, that I believe is at stephencabral.com/intestinal-cleanse is only 5 days. You can also find it at stephencabral.com/shop. That's what I recommend. So those are science-based. Those are really great. But those supplements are, once a year, I recommend using the heavy metal detox just to keep up. It's different than a functional medicine detox, which helps open up the liver pathways. If you've never done a functional medicine detox, I certainly recommend doing that first. I always recommend opening the liver detox pathways first because then everything you do after that is so much easier and there'll be less reactions because your liver has now all the compounds that it needs to do its job, right? And you've learned about intermittent fasting and anti-inflammatory foods, et cetera, et cetera. So that is how to detox naturally. Again, you're removing as many of these exposures as possible on a daily basis. You're hydrating. You're adding more fiber, more cruciferous vegetables, increasing your omega-3s. You're adding daily herbs like the daily cilantro and parsley, even during the heavy metal detox. You can still use your daily fruit and vegetable blend. And then if you need a binder, the intestinal cleanse can work great as well. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully it was pretty straightforward. If you have any questions, my team and I are always happy to help. Over 15,000 members now at cabralsupportgroup.com. Feel free to join, honestly, ask questions, check out the success stories. Let us know if there's a problem. Let us know if we can help. We're always happy to help. And of course, as always, please do feel free to share this show with anyone you believe it could serve.